Hello, welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, who is affectionately known as Coach. And it's a 10-game NBA slate here for you. Coach, I am ready for a brand new start here. No Groundhog Day allowed. Yesterday was a terrible slate. We need to change it up here today.
Yeah, we took a couple shots at that groundhog, so maybe he stays down in his hole. Excuse me. He stays down in his hole for a while. See, he's trying to throw some dander at me to get me to sneeze now because we don't like him. But yeah, no, we're ready to go after it today. And for me, as soon as I see those double digits in games, I go through the roof because I'm so fired up. So this is right in my sweet spot. I've spent a lot of time looking at it, and I like it because there's not just complete dead chalk of value guys and things. You have to be a little bit, you got to pull some ideas out and build in a couple different ways. I don't think there's any set way that people are going to do it in the industry unless there's news that breaks or cancellations. But right now, it's going to all be about digging in and finding some of these stats that matter and making it happen. And also wanted to mention too, for those that are listening in and aren't members of Coach Talk yet, we know and hopefully you will be soon. But today with the large slates like this, I'm not going to add the defensive real plus minus numbers in because we'll end up here until lock. So if you want to catch some of those numbers, I'll be highlighting them and talking about them and posting them in our Discord. So dfscoachtalk.com, jump aboard. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to your analysis today, Coach, because I do think it's very challenging to build a roster. So
Yeah.
let's go game by game here, as we always do, to find those hidden gems. And on the slate in general, we do have 10 games. 8 of the 20 teams are involved in a back-to-back. We only have one total over 230. So a lot of grinded out battles
Yeah.
potentially. The first one is one of those lower totals at 7 o'clock Eastern. We've got the 76ers and Charlotte. 221.5 is the number on betus.com.pa, our presenting sponsor. The 76ers are 7-point favorites here on the road. They're on the front end of a back-to-back. They're going to host Portland tomorrow. And the news here, we've got PJ Washington out for the first time all season, and Rozier is questionable. So what do you have here in game number one?
Well, it's 10 games, but would you believe me if I told you I had my number one play right out of the gate?
I do believe you.
Yes. And here's my thinking behind it. First of all, you mentioned that Philly's favored by 7, but I think Charlotte can keep this close. Rozier may play, Charlotte's played inspired ball. He's doing a really, really good job there. And so I think this is a decent game. Right now, defensively, though, we got to remember Philadelphia is third in the league defensively, especially mainly in the paint with Embiid. And then we know Simmons plays some good perimeter defense. Charlotte right in the middle of the pack at 16th. Pace is good, though. It's a pace up for Charlotte. Philly is 6th. They do get the ball up and down the floor. Charlotte 20th, but, I think moving up a couple of pegs each game. My key play here is Joel Embiid, and my reasoning is this. I think, Zeller's done a fine job in the paint. I think he does have a tendency in games like this where he's playing a bigger, dominant center to get in a little bit of foul trouble. And I don't like the rotation behind him at all because Biyombo's undersized. He hasn't been playing that much. PJ Washington is dinged up. We don't know
And out.
he's out for sure.
He's out.
All right, so that really limits, their rotation of bigs. They're going to have to go even deeper into that bench, and I just think that opens it up for Embiid. And my thinking is if he does play monster minutes today, maybe he sits tomorrow for the second night of the back-to-back. So that's what I'm counting on. I think they're going to need him because Charlotte is a dangerous team. And he really is my favorite play of the day, believe it or not. And his price isn't ridiculous for a guy that can throw 60, 70 DFS points up there pretty easily. I don't think what they'll do with him, and they haven't that much, as far as this year. And Doc doesn't usually do that. Like with Kawhi, he'd play him full minutes and then sit him. I think he's shown that he'll do the same thing with Embiid rather than try to get him 24, 25 minutes tonight and then tomorrow night. There's been some studies done on that, and guys that get hurt a lot, that's no good because they got to get their bodies all ready and out there. So whether it's 24 or 34 and then having them to come back the next day if they try to get another minimum minutes in isn't as quality of a way to do it as play your full allotment and then sit. So I haven't seen any coach talk on that. I don't know that's the case for sure. And tomorrow we'll worry about that piece. But what I have seen is he's in today. I think this is a great matchup against Charlotte. And if Cody Zeller gets in any kind of foul trouble at all, I don't know who they're going to use or how they're going to stop Embiid. So sort of begins and ends with me with Joel in this first game. I'm not going to go with the Charlotte guards, even though LaMelo I know is going to get a decent amount of play, especially if Rozier sits. I just think Philly's backcourt and their defense at the rims, with Embiid is just a little bit too tough for me. And there's a lot of good plays all around the league. As far as the support guys for Embiid with Philly, again, for me, just too much depth now. That's the thing today, Andrew, that I found in doing this slate. All of a sudden, we've got these teams that were scratching by during COVID have like 10, 11-man rotations, like Philly, Miami Heat, all these guys are, the guys that we were playing that we knew would get 35, 38 minutes because they didn't have enough guys are now scratching and just get 15, 20 minutes in the rotation. So this is going to be a one and done for me, the big fella, and then I'll move on to the next one. What do you think?
Interesting. I do like the matchup for Embiid. No doubt about it. I think he'll smash while he's out there. I am a little concerned though about the score here.
Okay.
If Rozier is out along with PJ Washington, like you said, they don't have much depth. The guys that are going to step up aren't really that scary, especially in terms of size. They don't have it.
Right.
I'm concerned about a blowout here if both of those guys are out. So I'm probably not going to go to Embiid. Other than that, I think you could look at somebody like Tobias Harris or Gordon Hayward as a cash play at small forward in the low 7K range on both sites. Those are potential plays for me if you need to fill out your roster that way. I probably won't go with LaMelo either. Strong Philly defense here. We might have a value option with Charlotte. We'll see what the starting lineup is. Does Miles Bridges get into the lineup? He's only 4,200 as a small forward on FanDuel, so that's an option for me. But I'm mostly going to avoid this game and go to game number 2.
Okay.
This is a better matchup, most likely. It's Indiana against Milwaukee, and it's actually the highest total on the board, 232, which isn't what you would probably normally think about with these two teams.
No, not at all. If you'd asked me to bet the highest total on the board before the numbers came out, that would not have been my pick. I was surprised.
Me too. Bucks are 8.5-point favorites here. It will be played in Milwaukee. This is a back-to-back for Indiana. They destroyed Memphis 134 to 116 last night. And in terms of injury news, I don't see anything here. And the Indiana guys did not have to play heavy minutes with that blowout. Sabonis was dominant in the first half. He had almost 50 fantasy points at halftime.
13 for 15 from the field. That's ridiculous.
So that was good. And the price tags for Brogdon and Sabonis jumped out at me. Brogdon went down a little bit, and Sabonis 8,300 on DraftKings, 88 on FanDuel. So I dug in a little bit with these guys, this matchup. I looked at all 4 games they played last year, And unfortunately, nobody really stood out. I know there's been some changes in the lineup with TJ Warren not playing and Bledsoe not being on the team anymore. But I was looking more at the bigs because it's the same group of Sabonis, Turner, Giannis, and Lopez.
Right.
Sabonis had one really good game and he was average otherwise. And same thing with Giannis. So, even though it's the highest total, I may just fade this game. Um, I think it could be a pretty balanced situation, and I'm not going to trust any of the bench guys here on either side. So, I keep looking at that price tag for Sabonis on DraftKings 8,300. He's been fine in back-to-backs. We said a few shows ago that Sabonis and Brogdon are almost leading the league in minutes, so they can handle it. But I just I'm not thrilled about this game in general.
Yeah, it's funny because you would think with this higher number and two quality teams, we'd want to go deep on this game. But I'm with you. This is not one of my favorite games at all. I think that I don't think Milwaukee runs away with this game. That 8 number seems a little high, but the thing that's interesting is why the price on Sabonis has come down is mind-boggling. And I think that's going to entice a lot of people into taking him, and rightfully so at that price. And he's proven that he's really good in back-to-backs. The thing for me, though, is I just don't want to go there. Giannis is a tremendous defender. He is just, you can't get around him. Stretch Armstrong in the paint. And Sabonis is not a high flyer. He counts on position and, muscling people. And, Giannis is pretty strong. Lopez, once he gets his feet set, he's like a brick wall too. So I just, I'm not going to go there. I think he's going to have a decent amount of ownership, and I get it completely with the pricing. I do like one guy for me, though, that stands out in this game, and I'm just so high on this guy. I love the way he looks. He looks super healthy. He's getting monster minutes, and his usage has actually cut into Brogdon quite a bit. If you've noticed, Brogdon's numbers have been really good, but not like those giant 55, 60-point games he was getting for a while. And that's Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb is talented. He's evasive. He's long. And I don't think Milwaukee has the best matchups for him with DiVincenzo or Connaughton and different guys that they'll bring in. And I don't think Middleton is going to guard Lamb. I really don't. I think he'll guard Justin Holiday to start out. But, Lamb is a guy at his price tag that is still in the mid to lower fives that, can easily drop 30, 40 fantasy points in a heartbeat with the pace of this game. Because, the defensively, they're 13th and 15th. So they're both middle of the pack, but I think we both believe that they're better defensive teams than that, and those numbers will improve. They are 13th and 7th in pace, so I respect that, and that's why I want to have a little exposure here. I just don't want to spend up, and the expensive guys are a fortune, and so I'm going to concentrate on my Lamb exposure there and go from there.
I like it. Solid pick there. All right, game 3. Your Dallas Mavericks traveling to Atlanta. We've got Luka and Trey going up against each other. 223.5 total. Mavericks favored by 2. Both teams here are on the front end of a back-to-back. Mavs are going to go home tomorrow and host Golden State. Atlanta gets to stay put and host Utah tomorrow.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter still out for Atlanta. Okongwu is questionable. What do you have here for your Mavs?
Well, I'm stunned that Dallas is favored in this game. Isn't that wild? I mean, they haven't won a game since Christmas, I think, for goodness sakes. I mean, they're going to Atlanta. They're 1.5-point favorite, which is very odd to me. And I've said that the last few games because they're not playing well. And I gave all the business to Coach Carlisle yesterday, and I think he deserved it. So, it is what it is. I don't usually jump on coaches like that, but when you blow games and you have fouls to give and timeouts and things, it's just inexcusable. I do think this will be a fun game and a good game. The problem for me is, Luka's price is just asinine. I mean, when a guy has to get into the 60s to just get value on a 10-game slate, I don't know how you pull that trigger. I mean, I get the fact that, he's terrific, but he's way more than Embiid, for example. I mean, so it's not logical to me. The fact that Dallas has all their guys back for the first time, you know, good luck with that, because there's literally a 10-man rotation behind Luka now. Maxi's making an impact, Kleba. Porzingis, we have no clue up and down. I mean, people here in Dallas are still wanting to run him out of town. They keep talking about these trades for Beal and all this, but they got to just suck it up here. Porzingis, he'll come out of it. His last game wasn't bad, so certainly not going to pay that salary for him being, so up and down right now. And all the rest of the guys, good. It's just hard to get to value with them. The fact that Josh Richardson's back and healthy and playing big minutes is the reason I'm not going to play Trae Young. I got a feeling you like Trae Young today. That's just a gut feeling. But I don't like – I think Richardson can bother him enough, slow him down enough. Now, he scored 50-plus, I think, in 4 of his last 5. But Dallas is not a bad defensive team with all their guys back. I mean, they played for 3 weeks without their 3 best defensive players. That's any team's going to falter there. 17th in defense for Dallas. It's more like a 10th with all these guys back. And Atlanta's 9th, so they're respectable defensively. 24th and 17th in pace. That's another reason I don't want to spend, half my salary on guys like Doncic and Young and Capella, the guys that are going to cost a fortune. I refuse to just keep taking wild shots at John Collins because he's the toughest guy to figure. I mean, he'll put up 20 DFS and then 55. I mean, and it doesn't seem to reasonably fit into the matchups. He's one of those just odd guys. If he's on, he's on. If not, he just goes through the motions or gets in foul trouble. So, believe it or not, Mr. Andrew, I'm going to leave this one to you because I bet you like a few guys here, but I'm passing the Dallas-Atlanta game completely and just not going to mess with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to fade Dallas as well. The Hawks are just surprising with that 8th-ranked defense. I know they're not going to be as strong without DeAndre Hunter, but Luke is very expensive, like you said. Hard to trust anybody else on Dallas with all those guys playing, so I'm not going there. With Atlanta, I do have some interest in Trae Young.
You better never play poker with me, man. I will take every last dime.
I don't know. I will take that challenge. I would look forward to that. That'd be fun.
Poker, Coach Talk poker event. We're going to do that.
Next Vegas Summer League, if it ever happens again and we're out there, we'll get a game going.
Get your bets down on me. I'm gonna skunk them. Go ahead.
No. So some interest. I mean, he's not in my first lineup though. I like some of the value point guards on this slate. I'm actually more interested in Capella. And at 8,800, we've been playing centers against Dallas. I like the discount from Embiid. So he's my pay up center if I'm going to go that route here. With Trae Young, you can plug your ears if you want here for a second. Chris Paul was terrific against Dallas 2 games in a row. So I think Trae Young can do it. I respect Josh Richardson. So on a smaller slate, if we didn't have value point guards, I'd probably be a little bit more interested in Trae Young, but I do like the value options here. So Capella likely for me, and we move on to game 4.
Dirk wants to say something to you, but I don't know if we can say that on recording when you're making fun of his Mavericks. But, one thing I'll say about Capella, I mean, we did ride the heck out of these centers against Dallas, but it's incredible how much Kleba has made an impact. And he's probably going to play 30 minutes. And it's just a different interior defense with him around, just something to throw out there. Not that Capella couldn't smash here. It's just, it's not as desperate as it was before Kleba came back.
Yeah, he had 1 block shot in that last game that I was really surprised at. It was a terrific defensive play But
Yeah, the chase
Aiton's
down from behind where he swatted the guy
it
right
was
out of his
just
hand.
coming across the paint, yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, Aiton still got plenty of rebounds, and I don't think they're going to be able to stop Capella. I certainly agree that he helps, but
yeah,
I think it'll be a solid night for Clint.
yeah. He's tough, but he's expensive.
Yes, he is. Speaking of the double C, we've got the Clips and Cavaliers in game four, first of the 8 o'clock tips for us, Eastern. 218 total here. Clippers favored by 8.5 after that tough loss to Brooklyn. We've got Drummond questionable for the Cavaliers. He sat out last one, and Allen was dominant. And then we've got Nance ruled out. So on a back-to-back for the Clippers against this slow Cavaliers team that's surprisingly decent on defense, they're seventh.
Yeah,
Don't have a ton of interest here. Reggie Jackson is still in play for me because Garland's defense is below average.
yeah.
Paul George would be an option for me potentially on FanDuel at 8,400. On the Cavaliers side, um, Garland actually is also an option for me against Reggie Jackson, who hasn't been strong defensively.
Correct.
Sexton probably won't get there on this slate, getting close to 7,000 in price. So really, for me, it's maybe one of these point guards. Um, there are some cheaper point guard value options on the slate that we'll get to, but for the mid tier, I think they're both in play.
Interesting. We're gonna have to wait for news to make sure Kawhi's playing. I know he's been playing back to backs, but still got to keep our ears open because that changes everything. Kawhi sits, then all of a sudden you need to play George pretty much. At least I would. And so, but I'm not anticipating that. You have the 7.5, 8 point spread. I've seen both for the Clippers. Could they pull away? Possibly, but the 218 total scares me a little bit. Both teams are decent defensively. The Clippers are 14th, but they're going to end up in the top 10. It's just a matter of time. And like you said, Cleveland's pretty good. The problem is 27th and 26th pace. You can't love that at all. Plus, Clippers probably going a little deeper on their bench with the back-to-back. I do like Reggie Jackson just of the value. They haven't moved him up. He still has the ball in his hands a ton. And I think I agree with you completely. I think he and Garland are real good mirror images of each other. If you're trying to spend down and get some value, if you're playing guys like me, like Embiid, you got to find these sweet spots where they could possibly do well against each other. And now that Sexton and Garland are back for Cleveland, it's helping them offensively. But you'll see where they got as high as fourth, they're down to seventh, and that'll continue to go down because those two guys are not good defenders at all. And I think, I like both sides of that from the value side on the guards. So we agree there. I think for me, it's very simple. If Drummond sits, then I'm playing Allen at 100% in every lineup. I mean, if Drummond plays, I'm not going to play Allen in a single lineup because they're going to split minutes. So, that's all we need the news on Drummond with the back spasms. And that'll be a big shift in my lineup. But after that, I don't like any of the other Clippers. Certainly don't like the Cavs against that Clippers D in this game either for all those guys now that several of them are back. So that's it for me. I'm all in on Allen if Drummond sits, and I do like the same duo that you do for value in the guard spot.
Okay. Game 5, Wizards against the Heat. Another 8 o'clock tip, 229.5.
Yeah.
Heat favored by 8. We've got Neto still out for the Wizards, and we're marking Westbrook as doubtful. At least I am, since it's a back-to-back. We don't have official news on that yet here at lunchtime on Wednesday. And then on the Heat side, everybody's probable. Gabe Vincent, Avery Bradley, Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero. And then we do have 3 guys out. Myers Leonard, who's out for the season now, Mo Harkless, and Chris Silva. So big total here, Coach. Do you like anyone?
I think people will chase playing everybody against Washington every night. And so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Miami guys that make lineups tonight. The three guys that you mentioned that are out for Miami are like their three worst players. They don't even get in anyway. All the guys you mentioned that were probable are all rotation guys. So they went from barely be able to get 8 guys on the bench. In fact, the one day the 8th guy had a fake like he could play, but he couldn't, just so that they could play the game. I don't remember even which guy it was, but he was available but not available. That's actually what the one thing said. So anyway, with all those guys back, I know that we've got 2 games in a row where Mr. Butler's got like 50 fantasy points. But here's the thing: there will be a lot of ownership on Butler and some of the other key guys. I just see this usage, digging in at basketballreference.com and looking at the combinations. When Miami has all these guys on the floor, there's just not enough basketballs to go around. I mean, this last game was a perfect example. You got to feed Bam inside. Olynyk gets some of his putbacks. And of course you get, you've got Hero that needs the ball. Duncan Robinson needs his shots. What about Dragic and Nunn? I mean, there's such a big rotation of offensive output. And then on top of all that, you had this Max Strus dude coming in, drilling a bunch of threes just to make it even tougher on the rotation there. So I'm fading Miami, and I'll probably be contrarian in doing that because it's against Washington. But that's just the way I see this game playing out. What I'll say about Washington is pretty simple. If Westbrook does sit, which I'm not convinced, I'm more on the 50-50. I need to hear this news. I know they said they were going to sit him on the backside of back-to-backs, but they also said in this last game it was the first time he felt 100% healthy. So he may lobby to play, so I need that news. If he sits, I'm going to Ish Smith as a monster value point guard, because with no Westbrook and no Neto, I think Ish Smith, who whenever he gets in there produces, even though it's a 10-game slate, maybe more on a GPP stance, but I think in that scenario, Ish is a fine play. With the prowess of the Miami defense, I know they're not ranked well yet, but they will be soon. I'm not going to spend up for Beal, even if Westbrook sits. I know that he leads the NBA in scoring, but it's almost like the Luka situation now. And he is very, pretty points dependent. He'll get a few assists here and there, and a few rebounds, but when you have to root for a guy to get 45 to 50 real points, then you're really scratching. It's a big hole to dig out of, and I'd rather use some of that salary elsewhere. So this is going to be a game that I think is going to get a lot of attention and ownership, and not really a game that I want to go to. There are a few secondary guys you could look at as possible value, but I want to see the Westbrook news for Ish, and other than that, I'm going to be skipping through this game pretty quickly.
Okay, I'm pretty similar. On the Miami side, I would consider Butler, but he's not at the top of my list because of the usage being spread around. Hero, the guy that I would probably, if I had to pick somebody, it would be Hero on FanDuel because he's only 6,000 as a shooting guard. But I do plan to fade Miami. And on the Wizards side, Ish Smith is in play for me. He's one of those value guards I was referencing. He just, like you said, he gets it done when he gets the opportunity. Bradley Beal. Now, this is a guy I looked at a little bit longer than usual here, and thinking about him on back-to-backs, because we learned last year that he just scoffs at back-to-backs.
Yeah.
And he gets it done. You remember he had that big game, and then he went to, I think, Chicago and scored over 50 points.
Maniac, I know.
And he was just on such a roll. And he's been excellent in back-to-backs this year. You remember that game in New Orleans? We look at him because it's back-to-back and Westbrook isn't playing. And we played him that night. He had 70 fantasy points, 47 real points. But here's the thing that makes me pause a little bit. This is the 3rd game in 4 nights for the Wizards. It's the 6th game in 9 nights. So I just don't think I could go to Beal, especially on FanDuel where he's almost 11,000.
And let
DraftKings.
me throw one thing in there. I really hate to interrupt you, but I forgot to say, and it's huge. Spoelstra is known to run doubles and refuse to allow their best player to beat them. He's done it against Harden. We talked about it multiple times last year. He's done it all over the board. If Westbrook doesn't play especially, I guarantee a Spoelstra smothers Beal with Butler and somebody else that's going to run at him and force him to give up the ball. And just wanted to throw that in there. Sorry to interrupt.
That's right. Yeah, and the other stat in his support is that Miami has not been good against three-point shooters. They're 23rd in
Yeah,
that
but that's
category.
with all the guys in COVID. I mean, those stats for
Yeah,
Miami you can pretty much flush because they didn't have any of their guys,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, I was just gonna point out that we took advantage of that with Malik Monk, but
You took advantage of it with
I took
Malik
advantage
Monk.
of that. But it is a different scenario here with Beal, and he'll get that focus from Butler and the starters. So I agree. I am probably going to fade Beal here tonight. All right, coach. Second half of the slate. Another 8 o'clock tip. We've got the Knicks and the Bulls. This is a rematch from Monday. The Bulls won that one 110-102. Similar total here, 216.5. Bulls favored by 3 on their home court. And interesting contrast in styles. Knicks are 30th in pace. Bulls are second.
Yeah.
Uh, Bulls bad defensively. Knicks top 10 under Thibodeau. Uh, the news here, we've got Rivers and Noel probable for the Knicks. Otto Porter is probable for the Bulls. This is a game for me that you could go for a one-off on the Knicks side. Randall is always in play. He was solid against the Bulls. He's solid against everybody. 8,600 on FanDuel is reasonable. Quickly is it's like Peyton is now keeping the ball warm for him, and quickly starting to get more minutes and more attention, more shots, more production. He's mid to high 5,000, 5K range though, so I don't love the price tag. So I probably won't go there today. On the Bulls side, Gafford is interesting to me because he got back up to 22 minutes, and he's a value power forward if you'd like on FanDuel at only 4,000. But Thaddeus Young off the bench, I mean, he's been the story lately for the Bulls. 3 straight games where he's been flirting with a triple double. I
Crazy.
mean, that is just impressive. So, another guy that's probably not going to make my first lineup, but a GPP backup, if you will, under 6,000.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't, obviously the best game with the low number and everything, but Thibodeau is such a maniac when it comes to his top 5 or 6 guys in the minutes. We all know that. And quickly has tipped the scale. He has quickly tipped the scale as well. But in 5 games in a row, his minutes have increased every single game, and to the point where he finally busted that 30-point mark or 30 minutes mark. So I like quickly here. I think he's going to be a player as he starts getting these 30 to 35-minute games. He's just he's involved with everything that goes on. I think we're going to see his price be at like the $7,000 range in another week or two. And so I like him in this matchup because Levine and White are not good defenders. Their backcourt stinks defensively. In fact, if they start slicing and dicing, don't be surprised if you see a little bit of Satoransky and Arcidiacono, unless he's hurt. He might be hurt. But the bottom line is I think they can attack that Bulls backcourt. I think Quickly's the best guy to do that. In a GPP, maybe Burks gets a little nod. I would start fading Peyton, unfortunately, because I just think he's going to get squeezed out a bit because they're they're going to still play Barrett a ton. So I think the rotation of guards more so will be Barrett, Quickly, and Burks. On the Chicago side, it's just the pace of the game that the Knicks play is going to drag down those guys big time, just less possessions. It is Levine's always in play the way he's playing and shooting the ball. And Kobe White is starting to sneak on my radar. He's finally starting to play decent. I mean, he was phenomenal last year. We used him all the time. But I don't know if I've rostered him this year. I don't really remember having him on my lineup because he's been so inconsistent and bad. That one game he played 30 minutes and didn't score. But I like him a little bit tonight. Quickly's not a tremendous defender. He gets it done, but I think that White could be a reach value play specifically on GPPs. But other than that, it's so tempting to want to take Randall every night. I mean, there's nothing more fun than watching a Knicks game and you've rostered Randall because, like we've always said, he goes after every bucket like it's the game-winning shot. And if he can get a finger on it or push a guy out of the way to get the ball, man, he just consistently does it. And I think the Knicks organization did a little Twitter dive with some of the Knicks beat writers and everything. They're just on this huge bandwagon since the All-Star voting opened 2 days ago to get him into the All-Star game. They really want a Knick to represent, in the All-Star game. By the way, did you see the news yesterday about the All-Star game? They were talking about selecting All-Stars, but because of COVID not doing anything for the weekend with All-Star, now they're saying they may do it all in one day on a Saturday, have some skills challenges and the All-Star game. So they're negotiating right now with the Players Association, and they're trying to figure that out. So we may get to see that after all, which is, if you remember last year's All-Star game, we were standing cheering at the end because of the great defense and fun. So rooting for that. So keep an eye out on that news. But anyway, I say that, that I think they're going to have a real push for Randall to make that, it's just part of that Knicks taking a step forward after being so bad and the laughing stock for so long. So Randall's always in play if I can fit him. I just don't know if I can afford the salary, but that's it.
All right. The other 8 o'clock game we have is Houston at OKC, another rematch from Monday. Houston blew out the Thunder by 30, 136 to 106. Total tonight is 221. Houston, the 6.5-point road favorites. We've got John Wall out, and on the OKC side, Shea and George Hill are both out. So, you interested in some value here?
I'll tell you what, man. Oklahoma City without Shea is not going to be pretty. I mean, Houston's a 7-point favorite. This game could easily blow out. Houston has the number 2 defense in the league right now. And do you know what they were last year of 1 to 30 with D'Antoni there?
Probably about 30th.
26th to 2nd. So they've really turned it around. This could blow out. That scares me. But you can't ignore 4th and 9th in pace. So I feel like I have to have some exposure here. So I'm going to look more at some of the value guys. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm actually thinking of possibly rostering Eric Gordon after he punched me in the gut 2 times in a row. He just fits in here. I know Oladipo's a great play, but he's expensive. But, with Wall out, Gordon's going to get more shots, have the ball in his hands more. He's playing decently. I think he's a consideration. Other than that, I don't want to spend up on this slate for Wood or Oladipo, and plus I think they could possibly blow them out. Oklahoma City is different. I have a few guys I'm considering there for sure. I think the risky play, but it could pay off in spades, is Diallo, because his minutes have been really crappy lately. But with Shea out, they need an offensive threat that is explosive, and he's the next best thing that they've got. So I think just because of that, he's going to get a lot more opportunity. I think you'll have a lot of ownership go to Dort. I'm not as crazy about that play. The other guy that I like that could easily make my lineup is Baisley, just because he's so athletic. They don't go to him that much. His usage number is only 12, which is sort of ridiculous with how athletic he is. He gets most of his stuff on putbacks, offensive rebounds, blocks, and steals. But I think they may utilize him a little bit more in the offensive scheme because like 1,000,000% of usage comes available with Shea out. So those are the guys I'm looking at. What do you think?
Well, since we finished on Oklahoma City, I'll start there. I am a little bit more interested in Maladon and Horford. Horford would be the value center, mid tier on this slate. He's been stroking it from
Yeah.
distance recently here, and using those positive vibes after the birth of his child. So he's in play for me just because of the absence of Shea and Hill. I think Maladon could work the two-man game with him a little bit. So Maladon is likely to make a bunch of my lineups. Diallo would be the GPP option potentially, and Baisley is almost never on my radar because of that usage number, but this would be a scenario where I would consider him. On the Houston side, I'm interested in Oladipo and Gordon, and then Jayshawn Tate on FanDuel. He's still at 3,900 as a small forward. I like that spot for him. He just kind of finds a way to get it done somehow, some way.
Scrapper. Yeah, he's a
Scrapper.
scrapper.
And then the potential GPP play off the bench, most likely, could start, would be Sterling Brown. And he's only 3,100 as a small forward on DraftKings.
Okay.
So we'll see what the starting lineup is with Wall being out. But I will have probably at least two guys from this game in every lineup.
I do not blame you.
All right, Coach, we move to 8:30. Minnesota and San Antonio down in your neck of the woods in Texas.
Yeah.
224 total. San Antonio favored by 8.5. D'Angelo Russell, questionable. Juancho is questionable to get back into the mix. Karl Anthony Towns is still out. Naz Reid is probable. And on the San Antonio side, LaMarcus Aldridge is out. So some decent paced teams here. I'll get this one started. I have some interest in this game because of the pace here. They're both above average because of the guys being out. I don't really trust the San Antonio defense, and so D'Angelo Russell, maybe on a smaller slate, but um, Beasley and Edwards. These are guys that I would look at as a one-off. Probably not Beasley; he's a little expensive. Edwards, I like what he's doing as a starter, so he's probably the guy I'd be most likely to play. But I'm actually interested in one or two Spurs, which doesn't usually happen. But the Minnesota's 23rd in defense, and with Aldridge out, we should get more usage for guys like DeRozan, who again is under 7K on DraftKings. I like that. Keldon Johnson has been pretty strong here a lot of games. I mean, he's not ultra consistent. It's hard to be when you're a Spur,
Yeah.
but with Aldridge out again, I like Keldon Johnson here. And Pirtle, if he starts, there's another value center you could look at on both sites.
Yeah, no, I think your evaluation is right on the money. I mean, I'll be pretty quick on this one because, Minnesota is such a dumpster fire. I think this game has the best chance to blow out because the Spurs, they're playing 500 ball, but they're playing better. The guy that I agree with you 100% on is Keldon Johnson. He's been more consistent recently, and I think this matchup's just going to play right into his hands. He's so athletic. He's consistently getting minutes. He's my favorite play on the Spurs side. I like DeRozan's price. That makes him very playable to me. Not positive I'll go there. I'm not playing DeJounte Murray until I see how things settle a bit here. Since Derek White came back, it's really taken a big chunk out of his usage and DFS points. So I'm going to avoid that. And for Minnesota, I mean, you can always take a GPP flyer on Anthony Edwards because he can have some big games, but they're just so awful. I just have no trust or consistency there with them. So for me, it's probably in all truth going to be Johnson and then run to the next game.
All right. Well, that next game is Phoenix against the Pelicans. The only 9:30 tip.
Yeah.
222.5 total. Phoenix favored by 3.5. We have Abdel Nader questionable. Cameron Payne is out. Booker is probable. And on the Pelican side, we've got Steven Adams questionable with the calf issue. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is a tough game to figure. Phoenix controls pace and they play really good defense, and that concerns me because New Orleans, I noticed, when they play up tempo teams, then they're usually up tempo, but the slower teams really drag them down. And I don't know if it's because they get into that where they want to play a little half court offense with Zion or what the deal is, but this is the game that I'm not crazy about. I know that the number's decent at 223 and the spread is pretty close, but New Orleans defense up and down. I hate playing Phoenix guys just like you. I just, the Paul Booker Ayton thing drives you nuts because really it's hard to figure who's going to do decently and who's not. And you can't expect Paul to have a ceiling game like he did the other day with Booker out there. So I really don't like anybody on the Phoenix side. And they're the 28th and 16th pace. So that really, squashes down, I think, the Pelicans' real appeal here. Now, Lonzo Ball's super cheap. You can consider him. But this is not the slate for me in a game against Phoenix where I want to pay up for Ingram or Zion. So very little exposure to this game, if any at all.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the Phoenix guys either, with all three of them playing, even though the Pelicans are 25th defensively. I mean, you could make a case for Chris Paul here to keep rolling, but I don't think I'm going to go there. And I have to mention it, Abdel Nader. I mean, I don't really like his game. I don't like his shot, but he has been playing better, shooting it better this year, and hitting value on DraftKings at 3,500. He's been doing it off the bench. So
Yeah.
I don't think I'll play him, but I just want to mention it. And then with the Pelicans, Zion is the starter that I'm looking at the most. I just don't think Cam Johnson's going to stop him. I know Ayton's a beast in the paint, but he's a guy that I think you could look at. And Josh Hart is really forcing himself more and more into the rotation with all those rebounds. I mean, what a nose for the ball.
Hard to believe.
Oh, he's getting it done here recently. So I like his price on DraftKings at 4,500. And we'll have to keep an eye on the Steven Adams news. Ayton might get a little bit of a bump if he's out. And if he is, just keep in mind that Hernan Gomez is the one who's getting more minutes here than Jackson Hayes off the bench.
How about that? That's definitely a GPP special because he played a lot that last game and he's not bad.
Yep, 29 minutes and he's under 4,000 on both sites. So
yeah,
keep an eye out for that one. All right, Coach, final game of the night.
Yeah,
Celtics and Sacramento. Back-to-back for the Celtics. They snuck out that win against Golden State, and now they've got the Kings. I like this game. It's a 226.5 total. I thought that might be a little bit higher. Celtics favored by 1.5 here. We are expecting Kemba to sit out since it's a back-to-back, so we could have some value with the Boston guards. Teague is in the mix for me. Better price on FanDuel. He's only 4,200. He could get the start and have a nice matchup against Fox, who's not good defensively. Sacramento, not good in general. They're dead last as a team.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the Celtics situation here, even though it's a back-to-back. Tatum is in play for me. He's been good on back-to-backs, and this is a good situation for him. On the Sacramento side, I'd like to get one or two of them and potentially stack this game, but their price tags are all just kind of fair to me. So I'm not jumping out at any one of them in particular, but I think there's a good chance I'll get one or two Celtics in my lineup tonight.
Well, my eyeballs were like cup saucers when I saw this game and it being the late game because with Kemba sitting, if you notice, I haven't talked about very many expensive players throughout this. After Embiid in the first game, I've been value special pretty much all night here. I love Jason Tatum and I love Jaylen Brown. I think this is the game, the up-tempo. I don't think they blow them out on the road without Kemba. And I think those guys are just going to go bonkers. I don't see Sacramento matching up well against them. I like the pace in this game. As you mentioned, Sacramento's the worst defensive team in the league. And, we've talked about it throughout the season here. When Kemba sits and it's Tatum and Brown full board in there, which they were both out for COVID for a while, then it's just through the roof. Their usage numbers are crazy. So I love both of those guys. And Tatum will be in my lineup 100%. And I'm trying to squeeze Brown in. His salary's a little higher than I'd like, but I think that could be a key. I think Sacramento can keep it close enough that we'll get finishing minutes from those guys from Boston. But I'm with you. I'm not crazy about spending up for some of these Sacramento guys. They seem slightly overpriced. The only guy that I would think about, because he is cheaper, and if you look at his last even 10 games, but specifically his last 2, is Harrison Barnes. He's quietly just doing all those little things. Some rebounds, some putbacks, some scoring, and his price is right. So I'd like to have a little correlation in that game, but I think that this could be a nice key game, and it just happens to be the late night hammer. So I'm excited about it.
I got to smile here and chuckle a little bit because these names that you mentioned throughout the show, I mean, it's so classic as a cash game master like you are. It just, I think, see, that's the thing. You'd be surprised. I think I'd have a pretty fair shot at you at the poker table because
you
guys
know
like
what's coming, huh?
Lamb and Keldon Johnson, and I mean Harrison Barnes is like the poster boy for that group because
safe floor. Just they have a button that says safe floor, safe floor.
He's like guaranteed to be within like 32 to 40 fantasy points every single night.
Yeah.
Like clockwork. He's like the best friend of a cash player and like the mortal enemy of a GPP player.
Exactly.
Because he does not have a ceiling.
Limited ceiling, but high floor. That's why I really, think that our analysis with this, we disagree a lot, but that's because we're looking at it a lot from different perspectives. So hopefully the listeners enjoy that, because that's exactly the, sometimes when you say guys with high ceilings that I think are terrible, I'm going, ooh, but that's, because I'm not a GPP player.
And you're looking at the floor. I'm always looking up at that ceiling.
And I'm looking face down on the floor.
But yeah, it is a nice balance, especially with the lineups that we build and give out to our members, because you're absolutely giving a cash lineup every single day. And you often do the GPP, but I'm always doing a GPP when I'm giving lineups. And so we have that nice balance for our members. So perfect day to join us too, by the way, because it's Wednesday, which means you get all the NBA lineups tonight and golf, which tees off tomorrow.
And this is hot in golf right now.
I mean, it's a big weekend. We got NBA, we've got golf finishing right before the Super Bowl, and then the Super Bowl.
What sport is that?
It's a football game.
Oh, one of those.
11 against 11. They're going after a trophy. So, I mean, this is the last week where we get football, golf, and basketball for quite a while. So jump in with us, dfscoachtalk.com, select whichever membership you'd like, and we'll send you an email, get you into our Discord. We give out the basketball lineups about 20 to 30 minutes before tip-off, and then golf lineups will be out tonight, give you plenty of time to build lineups before the morning. If you're into sports betting, take advantage of the betus.com.pa offer that's still out there. Go to that website, deposit $149 using the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, and you get to use all that money to bet on golf and basketball and football this weekend, and you get a free membership with us until April 1st. It's the best offer we've had, so grab it while you can. After you deposit there, let us know that you've done it on Twitter. You can find us at DFS Coach Talk. Any questions? Hit us up there. You can find Coach at JOESARVADI. You can find me at Language Olympic. And Shane, who is crunching the numbers right now to get ready for the Super Bowl, he is at DET Sports Shane. If you could, hit the like button on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel. We would appreciate it. We're going to continue to bring these 7-day-a-week NBA podcasts to you. Speaking of which, we'll have one tomorrow. So please join us for that. On behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.